Some studies say a quarter to half of fruits and veggies never reach a plate. So why are you the one feeling guilty when your spinach turns to slime? Old village families kept one root safe for 180 days without a fridge. How is that even real? What did they do before storing it? And what did they refuse to do? Ready for the part modern ads trained you to hate? When did we stop trusting the native way of keeping one root safe? The UN Food Agency says about 30% of all food gets lost or wasted each year. And that number feels personal once you pay for groceries. You bring food home, you try to be careful, and it still ends up in the trash. That hurts your money fast, and it also messes with your head. Here is what makes it worse for fruits and veggies. That means a lot of fresh food fails before you even get a fair shot. Have you ever opened your fridge and felt annoyed because you already know something in there has turned? Now swing the camera away from your kitchen and into older farm villages. People there kept repeating the same simple idea. One root, one pit, one cool, dark place. And that habit helped families eat for months when shops stayed empty. Some rural groups even built underground rooms just for food, because storage was part of survival, not a hobby. One guide explains why it worked. The soil kept cool air and gentle wetness, so the food lived in a calm space that barely changed. That sounds almost too simple, so your brain pushes back and says, if it is that easy, why do we even need fridges? Here is the weird part. Modern life gives you fridges, freezers, and bright plastic packs, yet food feels weaker. Bread grows mold in days, salad turns to slime in a week, and you start sniffing everything like a detective because you trust your nose more than any label. Why does a safe system leave you acting like you live in a risk zone? So the real question hits hard. If older people kept one rough root safe for 180 days, why do your safe foods feel so fragile now? Keep that question in your pocket, because the buried part is where the fear kicks in. And that fear came from somewhere. How did one village pit keep roots fresh while our fridge fails fast? Some sources say roots like carrots and cabbage can last 4 to 6 months in a root cellar when sand or sawdust sits around them. And that time range sounds impossible if you live on weekly grocery trips. 4 to 6 months from one harvest with no plug in the wall feels like a cheat code. Now look at your fridge the way it really acts. Doors open all day, warm air rushes in, light hits food, and sometimes a power cut ruins the vibe in 1 hour. Then hot soup gets shoved beside cold milk, and that white box turns into chaos. You can feel it even if you never measure it. The air keeps changing, and food hates big swings. A village pit or root cellar works in the opposite way. A root cellar is a cool, dark, slightly wet room underground, and guides say it fits carrots, potatoes, beets, parsnips, and turnips. The soil keeps low, steady heat, and it holds water in the air, so the food sits in a steady bubble instead of a roller ride. Have you ever noticed how your fridge can dry some food out while other food gets wet and sad? Underground, the earth blocks wild changes. Bright light stays out, hot blasts stay out, and cold shocks stay out. Microbes move slower when the world stays steady, and roots breathe slower too, so spoilage slows down. The skin can dry just enough to build a natural shield, and that shield is a big deal. Your fridge often sets up the opposite pattern. Warm air mixes with cold air, moisture forms, then dries, then forms again, and food keeps bouncing from cold shelf to warm counter and back again. That temperature roller coaster helps microbes that love tiny water drops. One detail makes the pit look even smarter. In the pit, roots stay whole and unwashed. But in your fridge, food often comes peeled, chopped, washed, and packed wet, and each cut acts like a wound. Keep that in mind, because progress adds even more stress before food reaches you. And that stress shows up later. Is it really progress if native sellers beat your supermarket shelves? Bread once lasted 3 to 7 days at room heat, but many loaves now stay mold-free for 2 weeks or more. And that change sounds helpful until you ask what changed inside the bread. Longer life feels like safety, but it can also feel like a trade you never agreed to. Now look at fresh food at the store. It already traveled for days through cold rooms, trucks, back rooms, and bright store lights. Every step adds handling, bruises, and stress, and bruises turn into soft spots later. One paper on food loss calls storage and handling a big part of total waste, especially for soft fruits and vegetables. And you feel that when you bring home berries that collapse fast. Have you ever bought something that looked perfect, then failed in your fridge almost right away? To cover the risk, factories use chemicals and tricks. Some foods use calcium propionate or sodium benzoate to hold mold back, so the product stays pretty longer on the shelf. That can make spoilage harder to see, which changes how you trust your own eyes. So you get stuck in a weird spot. Fresh food may arrive tired from travel, and long-life food may feel safe only because additives keep it looking fine. Meanwhile, a plain root sitting calm in a cool place can hold without a label. Hold on to that discomfort, because the old storage win came from tiny steps, not mystery, and one step starts before storage even begins. What tiny native trick turns a muddy root into 180-day food? Traditional notes from cold, dry places say people covered roots with 7 to 10 centimeters of soil. And that one detail sounds small until you realize it controls airflow and moisture. That layer turns soil into a simple shield, and the shield keeps conditions steady. Here is the part many people miss. The long storage life does not come from one magic plant. The long storage life comes from a chain of simple steps done in the right order. If one link breaks, spoilage walks in. So which link do modern kitchens break first? The first link is timing. Farmers in many cultures harvest roots when the skin hardens, because pulling too early leaves the skin thin and weak. Thin skin loses water faster, and damage spreads faster. The second link is curing. After harvest, roots rest in shade for a few days, and that short, warm rest helps small wounds seal. Some guides say this simple cure time is key if you want roots to survive months in a cellar or pit, because the outer layer toughens before storage starts. That means the root gets a chance to heal before it gets locked away. Then comes the rule that feels hardest today. Once roots sit in, people stop poking them daily. They pull a few from the edge, then close the pile again, because less handling means fewer bruises. Keep that chain tight, because it explains how whole groups stayed fed when life got hard. And that part changes how you see waste. And if this root fed whole tribes through cold seasons, why not you? One study on traditional silos says underground pits gave families food for 5 to 6 months. And that time span matters because it covers the stretch when getting food can be hard. 5 to 6 months can be the difference between calm and panic. Think about a long, cold season with no trucks, no quick store run, and no easy backups. The only food you have is the food you saved before the ground froze. In many old farming cultures, root crops became the backup plan because they could sit under barns, homes, or small hill mounds and wait. A modern root cellar guide says these veggies thrive in the cool and humid environment, staying crisp for a long stretch with almost no power cost. That line matters because it shows the old idea still works in a modern world, even if most people never try it. Does it make you wonder why we treat storage like an afterthought? For indigenous groups, storage could mean life or death. Roots stored in pits could carry families through long stretches, and grains in clay silos could last even longer. The method was simple, but the result was huge, because harvest time turned into future meals. So why not borrow one small piece of that logic? A box of roots in a cool closet or a crate with sand in a basement corner can cut down how often you throw food away. Hold that thought, because the real secret sits behind the root. It sits in the rules. What if the real secret isn't the root, but the native rules around it? That's the real goal: stable temperature and humidity without machines, because stability slows rot. They chased stability because stability slows rot. Now zoom out and look at the whole system. Old food systems ran on tight rules that fit nature. People ate by season, not by craving, and they grew crops that matched soil and weather, so the harvest came with fewer problems built in. Handling stayed gentle too, because damage you cause on day one shows up as rot later. You can hurt food long before you see the hurt. There was also a social rule that changed everything. People avoided waste because they saw the work behind every basket. Families dug, planted, watched, pulled, cured, and stored together. So when a basket spoiled, everyone felt it as real loss, not a small mistake. Some farmers still say, "Every bruise is money gone," because a bruise becomes rot, and rot becomes trash, and trash becomes lost pay. Modern life broke many of those rules. You can buy strawberries in winter from a place you never see, and food feels easy, so your brain treats each item as cheap and replaceable. The true cost hides behind the price tag, in lost water, fuel, and land, and also in your health when you dodge fresh foods and lean on ultra-processed ones. So the native secret stays simple. They built habits that matched nature instead of fighting it, and the root in the pit was proof of that match, not the full story. Stay close, because you can test one rule at home without changing your life, and the result can feel weirdly powerful. Before we close, what happens when you bring one native root back home? Modern homestead guides show carrots stored in sand can stay firm for 4 to 6 months after harvest. And that detail matters because it is something you can actually copy. It is not a fantasy plan. It is a real method people still use. Here is what it can look like in your home. You pick one root that stores well: potatoes, carrots, beets, or sweet potatoes. Research on sweet potatoes shows some kinds can last a long time in simple wooden boxes when cured and stored right. So you are copying tested steps, not guessing. Then you clear one dark, cool corner. A basement can work, and a low cupboard near the floor can work too. You use a crate and clean dry sand or sawdust, and you stack roots so they sit close but avoid tight crushing, because crushing causes bruises. You keep them unwashed because that skin matters, and you check once in a while, pull any soft one, and close it again. The less touch part feels strange at first, because modern life taught you to keep checking everything. 2 things happen right away. You can save money by buying in bulk when the price is low, and you take back a piece of control from a long food chain that often leaves you with weak, fresh food and long ingredient lists you never asked for. You may also feel a quiet link to older hands that trusted dirt, time, and simple physics more than bright stickers. One FAO line about storage sounds like a plain rule you can live by. Efficient handling and storage can greatly reduce loss. So here is the real test. When that one stash holds strong while other food rots, what does that change in how you trust your fridge tomorrow? You just watched a simple old rule beat safety. If that made you rethink your fridge, drop a comment. If you want the surprise coming, tap the next video now.